Would you like to start now?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll give a short introduction and then you can take the floor, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
Would you like to start the recording now?
Yeah, I have already started it, yeah.
Okay, so welcome everyone to the second Africa TESOL webinar. The speaker today is Dr. Aymen Elsheikh. We'll give you a short bio. Dr. Aymen is an instructional assistant professor at Texas A&M University at Qatar and the current president of Africa TESOL. He has a PhD in language education from Indiana University. And without further ado, Aymen, you can take the floor.
Okay, thank you, Amira, for this kind introduction. Welcome everybody to our second webinar. My name is Aymen Elsheikh, currently the president of Africa TESOL. I also work at Texas A&M University at Qatar. The webinar is entitled Translingual and Multimodal Activities to Engage L2 Learners. So before I delve into the topic, I would like to tell you a little bit about the context where I work. I work at the American branch campus in Qatar. It's an engineering school whereby we have 4 engineering majors and 1 liberal arts program where I can work, as well as a science program. In the liberal arts program, we offer English, political science, and history. And we offer different English courses, and we happen to have a foundation program as well, where we teach students some language skills to enable them to join their major classes, because the medium of instruction at the university is English. As I mentioned, it is located in Qatar. Qatar is a very small country in the Middle East, in particular in the Arabian Gulf. It's a peninsula. The population of the country is about 2.5 million. The local population is only 10 or 12% of that population. The majority of the people in Qatar come from the Arab world, as well as Asia, in particular countries like India, Pakistan, Nepal, Philippines, so on and so forth. The 2 main languages are English and Arabic. The first language is, of course, Arabic, but English is widely used as well. This is a brief background about where I work, because it is important to know this background so you have an understanding of the context in which I will be basing my presentation. This presentation is mainly based on my own instructional practices that I currently engage in, and I find to be engaging for L2 learners. So in this presentation, I'm having a technical difficulty to move the slides. There you go. What I will be doing is I will be talking about engagement in general, since the title includes engaging L2 learners, and the strategies, the main strategies that have been used in mainstream education to engage learners. And then I will argue for reconsidering the concept of engagement by including or taking into consideration the sociocultural term or the sociocultural context. In relation to the sociocultural context, I will be talking in particular about translingualism and multimodality. And then I will offer some brief classroom activities that relate to translingualism, and multimodal. So this is the outline of the presentation. Normally, I don't read from slides, but I'm going to occasionally read from the slides just in case there are some technical difficulties and some participants can see the text. So here is a general definition of engagement from Glossary of Education Reform. It relates to the degree of attention, curiosity, interest, optimism, and passion that the students show when they are learning or being taught, which extends to the level of motivation they have learned and progress in their education. So as you can see here from this definition, the concept of engagement boils down to the concept of motivation. How well the students or learners are motivated to learn the material activity. So based on this definition, also in mainstream education, there are many strategies that are currently used in order to foster engagement. One of these strategies is, I'm sure you are familiar with it, is to set clear goals to let the learners know what they are going to be doing and what the goal of your lesson is. In addition to that, making the learning convenient, in addition to sparking creativity in course content, as opposed to telling the students there in the textbook, page 18, we need to be a little bit more creative in terms of our course content. Developing a system of reward is another strategy to engage with students. And nowadays, there is a lot of emphasis on gamification of education. And that idea depends a lot on the system of reward, where the students compete and they receive certain points. Finally, opening multiple communication channels instead of being available to the students in class only, perhaps be available to them through email, through the office hours, so on and so forth, would help increase the engagement level of the students. So this is mainstream education way of looking at the student engagement. While I believe that it's these are very efficient strategies, I think we could actually take it a step further. Why I say that? I say that because in the context, I would just like to check and see if everybody is hearing me okay. Amira?
Your voice was sometimes cutting, Ayman. Like, would you like to raise your voice a little bit?
Okay. All right. So I just wanted to say thank you. So I'm arguing for reconsidering engagement from the mainstream education point of view to include the socio-cultural context, because we are dealing with language. When we deal with language, we cannot help but include the sociocultural context. I read from the slide, sociocultural context refers to the idea that language, rather than existing in isolation, is closely linked to the culture and society in which it is used. So what does this mean? Is that language is learned. When language is learned, the sociocultural context in which it is used needs to be taken into consideration as well. So for example, we need to know about our learners, where they come from, the cultural background, linguistic background, so on and so forth. All of these elements are important in order to foster engagement in the classroom. And the way to know about this and to foster them in the classroom, for me, I'm proposing the use of sociocultural activities in the classroom, especially in relation to translingualism and multimodality. So now I will talk a little bit about what I mean by translingualism and multimodality. Here I refer to Suresh Kanagaraja, who uses the term translingualism to refer to shuttling between languages, students, learners, use different languages simultaneously. This is how Kanagaraja refers to translingualism, which is the translingual practice, global Englishes and cosmopolitan relations. Other scholars, such as the Costa, not the Cost, the Costa, argue for mobilizing multiple semiotic resources to facilitate communication. So they argue for the use of language as not just a linguistic code, but a semiotic resource. And what does that mean is to facilitate the use of different resources in the classroom, such as textual resources, visual, oral, linguistic, so on and so forth. And it is this idea that I borrow from these scholars to come up with activities that are translingual and multimodal in nature. And activities that are multimodal can also be made translingual, as I will show you later on. So one of the activities that I use in my classes is this idea that I call text co-authoring. Another fancy word is intertextuality, whereby the text itself is reconstructed by the learner. So one of the activities I use is text co-authoring, and in particular, I give the students part of the story. And in this slide, you will see part of Old Man and the Sea, the story by Ernest Hemingway. I give it to the students, and then I ask them to co-author it, meaning that they continue the story using their native language or any other linguistic resource that they have at their disposal. And I'm not going to read the part of the story, it's just there for as an example. So I will show you the students' reconstruction of the story. I will read you one of the students' reconstruction of the story. While the old man and the boy were sipping their tea, a middle-aged man suddenly shouted, "Our catch has been stolen. It's all gone." The other old men started mumbling and said stuff like, "Who did that? That's a horrible thing to do." I'm not going to read the whole thing, but you get the idea. So the students get very interested and invested at the same time, and they bring their own cultural background into completing the story. And this opens multiple opportunities for discussing with the student the option of the different historical moves that they use in the story. So we usually engage in a very lively discussion, and the students are invested in the activity. So one time I asked them to complete it in English, because as you know, some students have this idea that when they are learning the language, they should not be using the L1. So we need to help them unlearn that kind of ideology. So to do that, I asked them to complete the story using English phrase and then use their various language or any other language that they are familiar with. And this is the Arabic version of the story and how they completed it in their own language. As I mentioned earlier, in Qatar, the Kurdish language is Arabic, and majority, if not all of the students we have in our foundation program speak Arabic. So therefore, it is important to understand who they are and help them take pride in their language and who they are through including such things that different opportunities. The best to use as well as opinions in their own language. Another activity I use is it relates to this concept of the death of the author. This is a concept literally a linguistic theory that Roland Barthes came up with to emphasize the idea that the text is open to multiple interpretations. So when the author writes the text, It's no longer what the author intended. Irrespective of what the author intended, the reader can put their own interpretation into the story. And one of the activities I use is this remodification of the painting, the famous painting, the Mona Lisa. As you can see, it has a mustache on its beard. And then I ask them to look at it, discuss what they know about it, and I asked them if they were the painter, the artist, what message would they want to relay and why. And finally, I asked them if they were to get anything or add anything, what would it be and why. And usually, the students are very excited, and the first thing they answer related to the last point is to remove the mustache and beard, and that gives you an indication about their own cultural understanding of how a woman should look like, so on and so forth. And then you add certain elements to that story in order to help them negotiate meaning and understand that painting from different and multiple perspectives. So again, this is an activity that we use, and I find it very helpful. Students get very excited, and they go above and beyond what I actually ask them to do. So another interesting activity that I find which I use, and the students are very engaged. Okay, moreover, continuing on these strategies that I have been experimenting with, the use of multimodality is important. And as I mentioned earlier, a multimodal text can also be translingual. And this is a picture I took while I was driving in one of the streets here in Doha, Qatar. And I engaged them in a discussion of uh, the languages that are represented in Qatar by looking at this street sign, which languages are included and why, which languages are excluded and why, and when we exclude languages, do we exclude people as well, so on and so forth. And this creates and generates lively discussion around the issues of representation, linguistic rights, so on and so forth. So the students really find this activity to be engaging, first of all, not because it is anti-lingual, but because it comes from their own linguistic landscape, so to speak. Okay, another activity I use in my classrooms is uh, this idea of multiple literacies. It could also be considered as multiple modality. Uh, and I bring to the speaker's attention that movies can also be viewed as text, not only the written word to the text, but also a movie is a text. And this particular movie also comes from their own context. The movie is called Hammali. Hammali in Arabic means porter. These porters usually are found in malls and traditional markets. When you go there and you buy your goods and stuff, they help you carry it to your car, and then you give them a tip. So these Ammalis are of particular nationality. So when I bring this into the classroom, I ask them to think about who these people are, what they do, how they are treated, and if they are to put themselves in their shoes, how would they feel, so on and so forth. And I don't think I can play the movie, maybe I can try, and you will see that the movie is in Arabic.
محمود قاسمي من إيران. أنا دشيت في سنة 62. جيت في دوحة أشتغل كدري ودي مويه في بيوت. دور الشغل دور الرزق. أبوي كان شيبة، أمي عجوز. أنا اسمي محمد.
Can you hear the
حوالي 59 سنة. القطار حوالي 40 سنة. طبعا أنا مشتغل في المحلات وفي النجلة قبل. طالعين السنة يبان أريد فيلم. طبعا ما في الشغل الكلية طبعا يعني ما نبي أما أروح كل دور الشغل. أنا غلام أحمد مالك خالد عمري سبعة.
Okay, I'm not sure actually if you heard it, but the idea is that this person tell stories about themselves, how long they have been doing this for, where they come from, so on and so forth. And as you can see, the language is Arabic, but the subtitles are included. So this is both a multimodal as well as a translingual activity that I use and I find very helpful. Some activities that I have not used yet, but I would like to experiment with, relate to this idea of literary translation. Again, it's important to take the context of the learners into consideration, and therefore I have selected this book by Abdul Mahmoud, a Qatari author, and it's called The TESOL. So in my future activities, I would like to select excerpts from this book and ask the students to translate this excerpt from English to Arabic as part of their writing and reading and writing activities. Third thing I would like to experiment with is to select excerpts from this book, which talks about the life cycle of the individual in the Qatari heritage. It's also a book written by a Qatari author. So what I will do is select excerpts from it in Arabic and translate it in English, because I believe that they will motivate them and get them more when they see their own heritage, their own authors represented in the past. I believe that's all that I wanted to share with you. Thank you very much for attending, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have. Thank you all. Was I talking to myself?
Thank you, Ayman. That was very interesting. So now, please, if you have any questions, you can type them in the chat box or use your mic to ask the questions. So Ayman, we have a question here from Shadia Mansour. Which of the activities that your students mostly were more engaged with?
Question again, Amira? Yes, I can see the question. Which of the activities that your students mostly engage with? Well, I would tell you that the activity that they mostly engage with is the text of authorship, or what we call intertextuality. And for the simple reason that they feel ownership when they complete the story that I assigned to them. This is number one. Number two, I usually do this online. Often I create a session thread on Blackboard, and I ask them to do that online. So they are more motivated to engage in different modalities as opposed to sitting in the class and writing, discussing the reconstructing. So that I found to be more engaging out of this.
And another question, how did they react to the video as a text, listening to the Arabic dialect and following the English script at the same time?
Yes, the movie as a text is an interesting concept that uh, perhaps they attention because they have never thought about that, most of them. I do ask them about the elements that the movie shares with written text.
I'm sorry, I meant to interrupt, but can you raise your voice a little bit because we can't hear you well?
Yes. So what I was saying was that the movie as text is a new idea to them. Okay. So hold on a second. Let me grab a headset. That might help. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So does this help at all?
This is much better.
Okay, good. Okay, I was afraid of shouting because my kids are asleep. It's 10:30 at night here. All right. So the question about movies as text. I was saying that it's very interesting, and because it's new to them, they never thought about movie as a text. And usually I ask them about the similarities between the written text and the movie in terms of main idea, what is the main idea, what are the details, so on and so forth. And regarding the question about the subtitles in English, I find it very difficult to help them follow the subtitles in English because they all know Arabic, so they just concentrate with the Arabic language. Any other questions, Amira?
Yes, there is another question. Did you consider training your students prior to engaging them in a new type of these activities? Did you give them training before you engage them in these activities?
Yes, I usually scaffold. I scaffold the activities, and the ones that I shared with you are not the only one that I gave them. These were the ones that I gave them to do on their own. So usually I bring different movies, different pictures, as well as images. And I scaffold the activity that I want them to do, and then I would ask them to do that activity on their own. Sometimes I ask them to do it in groups, other times individually.
Okay. We have another question. Activities. Do they discuss this activity with a partner in English if they don't share the same L1? Why do they use their L1?
Okay, that's a very good question. I mentioned,
This is
but
from Linda,
maybe
yeah.
earlier the voice was not clear, that we at the university use English as a medium of instruction. And I believe that the use of English as a medium of instruction is ideological in nature, and it does not allow the students to express who they are and take pride in their cultural background. Therefore, I ask them to use their L1 so that they are more comfortable and not alienated from the educational experience. This is the first reason. The second reason, there is a lot of research that shows that when students are using translingual, the strategies, especially as it relates to the use of their L1, that helps them improve and enhance their learning, not only in their academic life, but also in the workplace as well. So for these two reasons, I asked them to complete the text in their L1. And I have that same attitude from the students, like we are learning English. Why do we need to learn Arabic, for example, or why do we need to use the L1? So as I mentioned in my talk earlier, we have to undo these kinds of attitudes so that the students can gain the maximum benefit from their L1 in aiding the learning of their L2. As Shadja mentioned, L1 is the greatest ally to L2 learning.
Hind is asking, does it help using Arabic with the students in English classes?
What's the question again, Amira? Sorry. Does it help using Arabic?
Yes, with the students in English classes.
Yes, isn't this the same question that I just answered? It does help using Arabic with the students, but as I mentioned, sometimes they think that it is not relevant or they should not be doing that. But when you explain to them the rationale behind it, they start to see the value in the use of the L1, and then they complain a lot about how English is a killer language and that we should take pride in our language.
Okay, we have a comment, and I'm not sure if we have more questions.
Okay, I think Harry has a question somewhere. How is translanguaging different? Is that I had difficulties with the sound quality, so maybe this was answered. How is translanguaging different from other forms of L1 used in the L2 class, such as translation and code switching? So that's a very good question. Translanguaging is a concept that is limited to bilingual classes, whereby the use of the L1, not only the use of the L1, but the use of other linguistic resources is available to the students so that they can enhance both their first language as well as their second language. And this has been used in primary education as well as in higher education. But the use of it in primary education has been more in recent years as opposed to higher education. In higher education, there is translingualism as opposed to translanguaging.
I can see more questions.
Second, can one translanguage in more than one language if they don't have good proficiency in that language? Yes, they can. And I think that's the idea behind translanguaging, is to empower students. And there is another concept that captures this point more than translanguaging, which is plurilingualism. The idea that we know languages, but we are not proficient enough in these languages. So this is the concept of plurilingualism. But it can also apply to translanguaging. You can translanguage in more than one language, even if you don't have the proficiency in those languages. Did that answer your questions, Harry? All right, good. I don't see any other questions, and I'm sorry about the quality of the sound. Had I known, I would have used the headphones. I was speaking and I did not have access to the chat box. So is this the end, Amira?
I guess so. We don't have more questions.
Okay,
So,
well,
yeah.
thank you very much, everyone, for coming. We really appreciate your participation. And we look forward to having you in our third webinar, which will be next month in February.
Thank you, Aymen.
Thank you.